introduce our state senator, who I personally want to introduce her, but I also want to thank her and the other members of our state delegation, because as you all know, particularly in the banking community, we took on, at the request of our public partners, about 12 years ago, the redevelopment of the Julian Steel site, now known as River's Edge. And as you probably heard earlier this spring, around May or June, we got some tremendous word from the state that in fact they're going to be able to help us again financially with
And
that
so
project.
we need here in the Commonwealth, as in Lowell, to listen to our small businesses, and we can see that they can change the landscape of where we work. Now, one of the things that I've heard from small businesses recently in some of the cities that I visited, and in addition to healthcare costs and cost of insurance and the cost of doing business, one of the things that has come up over and over again is how do we retain young people in our communities? How do we retain the best and the brightest, the innovative economy that we're going into, to keep them here in their communities and in Massachusetts? And I think Lowell, through the Lowell Plan, one thing that they have done very well in the past 5 years is the Public Matters course. Now, there's been a lot of talk about public matters. Let me just point out that one of the hallmarks of Public Matters is introducing people from across the city, whether it is in education, government, private business, nonprofits, to Lowell, to engage people who maybe before that just worked in Lowell but weren't engaged in the city.
But it didn't just come with one act, and that's really what I want to speak to this morning. And it really follows on what Jim Cook has said and what Senator Donahue has said. That to make these projects happen, it really takes a team of people working in the same direction. So when that building was available back in 2006, it was the National Park that reached out to the college. So our appreciation to the National Park for that. Congresswoman Tsongas's office provided some seed money to us to do the study, and we followed up on that. But if it weren't for the capital bond bill that was put together when Kevin Murphy was chair of higher ed back in 2006, and the delegation combined and put 3 projects in that bond bill for Middlesex, and then fought with us, with the chancellor, to make sure that that money stayed in, and that our priority project, as we identified it, was for the arts building. So we do more than build buildings. We also are groundbreakers in another sense. And that sense doesn't require shovels and it doesn't require hard hats. We're doing groundbreaking work in the academic area. And that's the kind of news that doesn't make the newspapers, or the radio shows, or the television shows. It's the work of our faculty on the national level that are engaged in really transformative educational practices to assess the work of our students, to make sure that when we graduate a student from the community college and we transfer that student to the university, that our curriculum is aligned from the high school to the community college to the university.
We make
so that
decisions. Everything we do is strategic. Middlesex is the reason why we've been able to grow and expand in the downtown. They really took the path, the leadership path at the beginning, which allowed us to be here. The other point that I want to make is, all of you see we have a publication on everyone's seat, and I would ask all of you to take a few minutes after this breakfast to read the substance in this document. It's basically a document about what the university contributes to the city. I was thinking about this as Carol and I were talking yesterday. Think about what this city would look like, or what this city would feel like today without Middlesex Community College, University of Massachusetts Lowell, and Lowell General Hospital. 3 entities that while they're tax exempt, are making enormous contributions. But think for about 30 seconds about what the city would look like today without those 3 institutions. Thank you very much. Now, while the development you see around, we actually have meetings and events. I didn't know I was supposed to introduce you. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round
Chancellor.
And an adjunct faculty member.
Thank you, boss. No, it's great to be here and to speak to this group again about what's going on in the city of Lowell. And I thought the Chancellor was going to kind of go off on the tax thing a little bit more. I was just going to tease him that I had the assessors walking around the building this morning. They are a key part of why we are so successful. It's always great to hear those successes, but I'm going to go off on a little bit different tangent because my role here today is to talk about the city. And I think that's sort of an untold story, if you will, in my opinion, of the successes that are taking place here in the city of Lowell. In my opinion, that there are three areas I want to focus on: operations, finances. I'm just going to touch a little bit upon economic development, because Adam Bakey is here today to talk really about that. But over the last 7 years, we have really made a concerted effort to change the organizational culture of the city of Lowell. We're focused on really four areas: performance, accountability, neutrality. Everyone gets treated the same, based upon a concept of respect and equity. No longer do we give people special benefits by who they are. I think that's a key part of what a city government should be doing. We also have a goal of efficiency, doing more with less, and getting by on the resources that we have, and not going beyond our means. Now, many of our departments are models, and that really doesn't get as much play, I think, as it should. Many of the departments of the city of Lowell now are the models for other communities across the Commonwealth and across the country as to how a mid-sized city can achieve such
And
success.
cities like Lowell that are going to decline in the coming decades really is going to be their ability to be an attractive place, particularly for the millennial generation, to invest, both in terms of their personal residential decisions, but also in terms of their business decisions as they become entrepreneurial and begin to be the decision makers in businesses. And I think Lowell is well positioned with respect to a lot of factors that drive and seem to attract millennials across the country. But we also have to be very cognizant that we continue to reinforce the things that are positive about the city in being a compelling, authentic place that is appealing. And we also work to combat the possibility that we instead be viewed as a remote suburb of Boston. And as you can see from the picture at the top, I don't think I need to explain why people might be concerned about being a remote suburb of Boston. Branding aspect of the city itself. The cities that people are going to want to move to, live in, and invest in are the cities that are viewed as progressive with respect to sustainability. We also need to be the kind of place that fosters innovation and entrepreneurship. I think we are well positioned given our higher education resources and a lot of the organizations that are really committed to supporting entrepreneurs in this community, both as private lenders, but also as nonprofit assistance organizations and so forth. But the economy of the future in this country is going to be increasingly about people who grow their own businesses. And the more that we are the place that they choose to grow those businesses, the more likely as unemployment challenges and underemployment challenges are disproportionately falling on our immigrant and minority populations. And I'm pleased to report that in partnership with the Lowell Plan, the Lowell Development Financial Corporation, many of the local lenders who are here in the room, and a lot of our nonprofit partners, the city has submitted what I hope will be a very competitive application to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's Working Cities Challenge for what will be a new initiative launched in helping immigrant entrepreneurs, both with technical assistance and with financing assistance, to encourage a more and ultimately have a transformative effect in creating a better environment in the city that will help grow immigrant-owned businesses.
Of the connector of 495. It was shortly after that the late Senator Paul Saunders told me that you lost your blow-in status after 20 years. So, Cookie, this is the last freebie. With my pending elevated status, I wanted to I hope you'll give me the latitude to just review a little bit of Lowell's history. The city was formed by companies with names such as Merrimack Manufacturing Company, Tremont and Suffolk Manufacturing Companies, and the proprietors of Locks and Canals. That last company was so innovative that it is still productive over 200 years later. We personally experienced this effect went after almost 5 million square feet of tours. We walked 5 million square feet of potential tenants through what is now called Cross Point before the New England Telephone Company stepped up to become its first tenant. The lease was cheap, and the hoops that the owner, Chris Kelly, and the city jumped through were large. No, actually admit that, they were historic. But the ultimate effect was that that lease was followed by 750,000 square feet of additional tenants in less than 1 year. A 500,000 square foot office and/or lab research building. They need to assemble the permits to make it necessary to begin construction quickly. And I think this is an important component, they need to find a developer that is committed to the project in the city. Then Lowell can do what Lowell does best. Find ways to solve problems and overcome obstacles to achieve a clearly stated goal. Now, you've all done this before. This isn't new news. The National Park, the arena, the ball field are all testaments to your intestinal fortitude. And I, and yes, Melissa, who gave me all my speech writing recommendations, said never use I, but yes, I experienced this at Cross Point, where the city, think back, put up HUD funds to guarantee Chris Kelly's ability to operate the project so that the New England Telephone Company would become its first tenant. This had probably never occurred in the country, not in the region of the state, anywhere. And yet, the city of Lowell stepped up to support a vision. Jobs equal employees. Employees equal spending. And spending results in expanded development for housing, retail, and maybe, if we're really lucky, those infamous $75 Del Frisco steaks. I appreciate your attention and your thoughts, and I hope that the city can see forward to expanding its job base and growing its opportunities. I would now like to introduce the next speaker, who is Paul McMorran. Paul is an associate editor of Commonwealth Magazine, where he writes about state politics and public policy. Please give him a large round of applause.
And they don't continue to live here and get involved in our community, that as a community we failed. This is the generation, and I never thought that I'd be old enough to get up and say that here, but this is the generation we need to keep here. We picked them, and I want to give a disclaimer first to anybody here that listens to what they're going to say. I have no idea what it is they're going to say. I've asked them to be honest, to give their opinion as two people that are working in our city and living in our city, to come up and tell you their impressions of what they like, what they don't like, what we need to do better. So I'd like to introduce Francie Slater and Colleen Brady.
Thank you all so much for this opportunity to be here and speak this morning. Thank you, Jim and Rosemary, for giving us this chance. You might be asking, what is our intention of sharing our Lowell story with all of you this morning? As Jim mentioned, we're both recent graduates of the Public Matters program, and we share a common sense of stewardship and civic responsibility to this city. This place is our home, even though we weren't born here and we don't have deep family roots here. This place is our home because we have chosen to be here and to build our careers, families, relationships, networks, and life experiences here.
We hope that in sharing our story with you and everyone here, that we can better our resolve to better the city and to build upon the greatness that's come before us. I moved to Lowell from the UK as a sophomore in high school. I dislike Lowell the same way that teenagers dislike pretty much everything. But within a year, I began to love the city. I chose to stay here because I have a base here. I feel like I belong to this community. The people of Lowell truly are like none other. They really are themselves. There's no need for airs and graces. You just get what you get.
It's how we can perceive ourselves, and it is also how others will perceive it. Many problems we face here in Lowell are not intrinsic to our city in particular, but are universal challenges faced in urban centers across the country. As residents and representatives, leaders and initiators, it is our responsibility to be ever conscientious in the words we choose when talking about our city.